Like most of the world, I am in love with K-pop demon hunters. So I put together a list of my top size-inclusive patterns inspired by K-pop demon hunters. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. I'm here with a pattern roundup video that has just taken me by storm. Like a lot of people, I have fallen completely in love with K-pop demon hunters. I think it's an awesome movie. It is one that brings me to tears every time I watch it. It's full of a great message, great characters, really fun animation, and of course, the incredible songs. I've watched the movie several times by now, and I've listened to the music probably nonstop for a month or a month and a half. And I got this idea, I think last week, and it took me a little while to put it together, but it was like I was possessed by one of the demons. I needed to get this pattern roundup put together, and I'm really happy with what I've been able to put together for you. This is my list of size-inclusive patterns inspired by K-pop demon hunters. Specifically, K-pop demon hunters characters. So I'm going to have at least one pattern, but in some cases two, for each of the main characters. So that's the 3 Huntrix girls and the 5 Saja Boys. And then I've got a couple other cutesy ones at the end, which you can probably guess what those ones will be based on. But let's get into this list, shall we? Now, when I go through this list, I'm going to hopefully have a photo of the character as well as the pattern. They might not both be on screen at the same time or for the same length of time. I usually leave the pattern photos up for the entire time that I talk about them, but I might just leave the character photo up for a short time just so it's not taking up the space of the pattern photo. Now, this is not a spoiler-free video because I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, it's because you've seen K-pop demon hunters and you know the story and you know the characters and you're looking for more of K-pop demon hunters. So this video will not be spoiler-free. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to press pause, go watch K-pop demon hunters, and then come back to my video. Now we're going to start with my girl Roomie, the lead singer of Huntrix. I have worn my faded purple lento specifically to match her braid. I'm in love with her braid. I think it's so cool. I sadly cannot do that myself. My hair is far too short. But this is my most K-pop demon hunters outfit that I have in my wardrobe. But let's start with Roomie. The first pattern that I have for her is the Jeepers jersey by Lydia Morrow. And I have chosen this one because it matches almost identically with some modifications, let me say that, to her zip-up top that she wears in that pivotal scene in Golden when you find out that Roomie is part demon. So she wears a high neck, zippered sleeveless top. And the Jeepers jersey is going to work for this one with a few modifications. First and foremost, you would need to knit it in a solid color, which I think is a bonus for this pattern because this is an intarsia pattern, this is a color block pattern. Knitting it all in one color takes away a lot of that excess work that you need to do to make it look like a biker's jersey, which is what it's intended to look like. But if you do that, you will get a top that looks really similar to Roomie's. So there are a couple versions of the Jeepers jersey. I have shown the sleeveless version, which is in the pattern. Of course, you do need to just knit it all in one color to look like Roomie's. And in the pattern photo, you'll see that it is kind of a hip length jersey. Just crop that to look more like Roomie's. So basically, This pattern, minus all the hard work, minus about half the body of knitting, will look just like Roomie's top. So yes, I'm stretching it a bit, but I think it's a really great match for that top. Speaking of Roomie, of course I have found a pattern that shows her patterns. This is the Wildcat Sweater by Zanate Knits, which I hope I pronounced correctly. And this is a pattern that mimics those demon patterns. Now, of course, it's not identical. It's the best that I could find on Ravelry. And trust me, I looked at a lot of colorwork patterns before I found this one. And I'm really happy with this one. I think it mimics those markings quite well. It is based on, I think, a tiger, but we've got some other tiger things coming up. So this is not my Derpy Tiger pattern. This is my Roomie Demon Markings pattern. So this one is great. It's just a fun, abstract-y colorwork pattern, and I think it really works well to mimic those demon patterns on Roomie. To make it even more so looking like her patterns, I would use a speckly or a variegated yarn that is neon colored, neon pastel, against maybe a darker background. I think like a purple like this would be really nice, and really lean into the colors of Roomie's patterns. Next up, we're going to talk about Meera, who is such a fabulous character. They're all fabulous characters. I'm going to be saying that about every one of them. But I have chosen a pattern that actually looks really similar to something that Meera wears. In one of the scenes, she is seen wearing a white cable knit tunic sweater with some orange striping and an orange collar. And I have found a very similar pattern to that sweater that she wears in the movie. Again, would need a couple modifications, but not too many. I have chosen the Grayling sweater by Magdalena Parker. She's also known as Knitonomy. And this is an all-over chunky cable sweater. It looks incredibly cozy, and it's one that I think works really well for the sweater that Meera wears. And you just need to make a couple modifications to make it match it perfectly. Of course, you need to do the collar in bright orange, as well as adding orange stripes along the tops of the sleeves. This is a drop shoulder sleeve. So I think once you start that drop shoulder sleeve, when you're halfway through that first cable, you can add in those two stripes of orange, and that will make it look really identical to Meera's sweater. Next, we'll look at Zoe. And Zoe is such a fun character. I really love her bubbly energy. I really connect with her desire to people please, and she's constantly got ideas going through her head. She's probably a little bit anxious. I really vibe with that. I feel that on my level. But I have found a couple really cool patterns for her. So for a pattern for Zoe, I'm taking inspiration from her floral bomber jacket that she wears when the Saja Boys perform for the first time. And I found a pattern that's a little off the beaten path. It's not a bomber jacket. It's a very specific type of garment, but I've chosen it for a reason. The pattern is the Blooming Daisy Chegori, which I hope I pronounced correctly. I do apologize if I did not, by Sedna Yang. And this is a Korean garment. The jagori is a very specific piece of Korean cultural dress. It is part of the traditional outfit called a hanbok, which is worn by both men and women. And there is a knitting pattern of one. And I have chosen this one specifically because Zoe's bomber jacket is very floral, and this is a floral jagori. So I think this one is absolutely beautiful. It's a very specific look, but I do think that it really pulls in that nice tie of the outfit that Zoe is wearing, but also Zoe's desire to really connect with her Korean culture because she's the character that has been born in Korea but grown up in America. So in the story of the movie, she really wants to connect with her Korean heritage, and that's part of her shame, is not feeling like she fully belongs in Korea and that she's not fully Korean because she grew up in America. So I really loved the idea of sharing this pattern because it had that cultural connection as well. And it's just really brightly colored. It's really fun. It's definitely something that I could see Zoe wearing, and I thought it was a great addition to this list. But Zoe's outfit is not complete with just a floral jacket. She also wears a bucket hat, and you can tell in one of the shots that it is a knitted bucket hat. Well, it's probably knitted and felted because it is a very sturdy bucket hat, but I did notice in one of the shots that it does look very much like it is knitted fabric that has been felted. But I have found a pretty good dupe to look like Zoe's bucket hat, and that is the Fearless Bucket Hat by Tori Yu. And I chose this one specifically. There are quite a number of bucket hats, and yes, this one isn't necessarily size inclusive because it's an accessory. Accessories often don't come in more than a few sizes, although this one does come in 3 sizes, which is great to see. But this one was really sturdy, and I think it's because the top crown of the bucket hat isn't round. It has ridges. It's a bit of a square shape to help it keep its firm shape as a bucket hat. And I also loved that the brim had a picot edge. It just looks so cute, and I really could see Zoe wearing this particular type of pattern, as well as the fact that this is knit using fingering and lace weight. It has mohair or suri in it, so it has like a fuzzy look, which mimics that felted look of Zoe's bucket hat. Now we move on to the Saja Boys. And of course I'm starting with Jinu. Jinu was one that I kind of picked out a pattern relatively quickly because he kind of has a distinct look and he doesn't really wear much that could be done as knitwear, with the exception of the hoodie that he wears when he and Roomie meet up in secret. So he's wearing this really nice dark green hoodie. I really love the look of it. And I have found a hoodie knitting pattern. This is the Clubhouse Raglan hoodie by Two of Wands. This is a pattern that I have used the hood portion for a hoodie that I knit for my husband a couple of years ago. I was knitting a different pattern for my husband and it was a hoodie pattern, but I found that when I looked at the instructions, the hood had too much of that little like pixie peak at the back. I really don't like that look. I know it's a very specific look. Some people love it. I personally don't like it. I love a rounded hood. So when I went looking at hoodie patterns at that time, I found this one and I've kept it in my favorites ever since because it just looks like a really classic hoodie. It features a really nice big front pocket. It has a really nicely fitted hood. It's a really casual vibe, very similar to what Jinu wears when he and Roomie meet up in secret. Next up, we have Abby, who is probably my favorite of the Saja Boys. I just think he's so funny. He's very much a caricature. And who doesn't love the popcorn eyeballs? Like, oh my gosh, that has to be one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. And even though Abby is so full of himself, I do think he's absolutely hilarious. So he is the next Saja boy I have some patterns for. Abby's typical look is a button-up shirt, which he likes to flex open and lose all of his buttons. And I have found a pretty great knitting pattern that looks very similar to a button-up shirt. This is the Perry Polo by Alex Engels. And this is one that it has some color blocking, but if you wanted, you could just omit that and do it in a solid color. You could do some stripes. I do really like the idea of keeping the color blocking because I believe it's done with intarsia and it creates these really nice seam lines going down the front of the shirt. It kind of mimics, I think, a Cuban style shirt, and I think it gives a lot of nice visual interest to the shirt. But if you wanted to do it all in one color, you definitely could. And of course, this has that nice button band going all the way down the front, but because it's knitwear and it's stretchy, you wouldn't pop your buttons off like Abby does, but you could try if you wanted. And something else that I liked about Abby is he's wearing this really fun Hawaiian style shirt, very warm weather, but he's also wearing a knitted toque. And I have a pattern that matches that one pretty closely. This is 2x2 by Anne Gagnon, and this is a free pattern. This is actually one of my go-to hat patterns. I recently knit it for myself in a hot pink yarn, but if you knit this in a mustard yellow, it would look really similar to Abby's hat that he wears when they sing Soda Pop. So this is another pattern that works for Abby. Next up is Mystery, and he's a really fun character, and I've chosen 2 patterns for him with the intention of kind of using them together because something that I love about Mystery's outfit is he wears this really fun, oversized yet cropped vest with these sparkle style appliques on top. And I have two patterns that would work together to create something that looks really, really similar to that. For the vest portion, which would create the base of this vest, I have chosen the Best Vest by James N. Watts. This one really has that big oversized style. Mystery's vest has a really deep, really open V-neck, which the Best Vest has. However, the Best Vest is sort of a hip length, really oversized, cozy vest. If you were to crop that, it would look more similar to the style that Mystery wears. But you could still do it at any length if that's what makes you comfortable. You could just use the next pattern that I'm going to talk about to make that vest a little more mysterious. And the next pattern that I have to share with that is the Sparkles Cardigan by J. Mio Knits. And this is a really, really cute cardigan. I put this pattern in my favorites a couple of years ago because it reminded me of Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. But once I saw Mystery in K-Pop Demon Hunters, I thought this is perfect for those sparkle shapes that are on Mystery's vest. So if you wanted to really play into that and kind of make a cosplay of his vest, you use the Best Vest as your base and then use the applique sparkles from the Sparkles cardigan in order to create those fun appliques on his vest. Or if you just want the style of the sparkles and you just want that as your link to Mystery's outfit, but you don't want to create a vest, you want a cardigan, you could go straight ahead and do the Sparkles cardigan. There are a couple options for you there. Next up is Romance, and it was pretty easy picking a pattern inspired by him because everything he wears has hearts all over it. So of course I chose a pattern with hearts all over it. I have chosen the Cordelia cardigan by Megan Balmer, also known as Megan Makes Do. I was introduced to this pattern by Chelsea of Knitting Tipsy, who is currently working on her version of this, and I knew it was the perfect pattern to represent romance because it's a cardigan covered in hearts. What's not to love? These are done using duplicate stitch. So you knit the entire cardigan first and then you add these later with duplicate stitch, which I've never done duplicate stitch. I hear that it is something that can be really mindful or it can be a little bit of a pain. But if you want the look of the hearts, unfortunately you do need to do the duplicate stitch. But I think it's really similar to the clothing that Romance wears, and it's a great option to look like him. And saving the youngest for last, let's take a look at Baby Saja. Now the pattern that I have selected for him is definitely inspired by the sweater that he wears when they sing Soda Pop, but trust me on this one, it's going to require a little bit of extra work. I have chosen the Argyle Dreams Vest by Wan Chang Fua. And this one is also a free pattern. Now, Baby Saja is wearing an Argyle sweater. There are almost no size-inclusive Argyle sweaters on Ravelry. And if they are, they don't match the style of his sweater specifically. And neither does this vest. It was just the best option that I could find that could then be turned into a sweater. Because this is a dropped shoulder vest, it would be very simple to pick up the sleeves at that armhole instead of knitting ribbing and just knit yourself some nice long sleeves. You could do some gentle decreasing to give yourself fitted sleeves like Baby Saja's, or you could just knit them straight down and have a nice wide cuff, or even do some decreases right at the end and have a bit of a balloon sleeve. Lots of options there. So this one does look like Baby Saja's, but it requires a little bit of extra work to get it all the way over the finish line. Now you're probably thinking, I've covered all the characters, who else is left? Well, I could have done something for Bobby, but Bobby essentially just wears a t-shirt and a blazer. There wasn't really anything that I could use as a knitting pattern that is really inspired by him, especially because his t-shirts are usually graphic t-shirts, and that doesn't really translate super well to knitting, so I didn't really have anything for him. But there's two other characters in the movie who also have a big role to play that I have found some knitting patterns for. Of course, I have chosen patterns for the Derpy Tiger and the Magpie. Let's start with the Derpy Tiger. The first pattern that I have for him is Fierce by Kate Oates. This is a pattern that features a tiger stripe colorwork design. This is so cute, and I love that the version that Kate has made features a color-changing yarn. I feel like if you used that specific yarn, which is Spin Cycle, a little pricey, if you use that with a nice like bright blue, you're going to get colors that look really similar to the Derpy Tiger, because the Spin Cycle yarn that they've used has purple, pink, red, orange, yellow, all kinds of colors that are featured in the Derpy Tiger's all over design. And I just thought it was a great way of symbolizing him in a sweater. I did look at patterns that featured an actual tiger design, but I only found one that was size inclusive, and it was just too realistic. It was trying too hard to be an actual tiger design. I liked the symbolic way of doing it in the Kate Oates pattern instead. Now, just because I thought this was a hilarious inside joke, I have a second pattern for the Derpy Tiger, and that is the Rukatava, which I hope I pronounced correctly, by Anna Johanna. And this is a potted plant sweater. So, of course, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what this is referring to. This is also one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It is so cute. I love how it really changes your perception of the tiger immediately. Because when he first shows up on the screen, he is intimidating. You think he's this big, scary tiger that's going to attack Roomie. And then he immediately knocks over a potted plant and he changes style immediately. And it's so cute to watch, and it's adorable to see him try and fix that potted plant over and over and over again. And the magpie just starts to get frustrated with him. So cute. So I thought this was an adorable pattern to sort of reference that scene in the movie. And last but not least, I have chosen a pattern inspired by the three-eyed magpie. Well, six-eyed magpie, I guess, because he's got 3 eyes on each side. But we only ever see one side at a time. Now, this is technically a pattern inspired by a different bird, but it would work just as well for the magpie. And this is Nevermore by Maxim Cyr, also known as Max the Knitter. This is such a cool pattern, and I feel like you could change the eye of the raven on the sweater to have 3 eyes, so it looks like the magpie from K-pop Demon Hunters. You could also play around with the color scheme. Max has gone with a really earthy color palette, but you could very easily change that with some neon colors, add in some black and white around the bird, around the raven to make it look more like a magpie, and you could really play around with it and make it suit that bird specifically. It would require a little bit of extra work, but if you really wanted something inspired by the magpie, this is a great pattern. So this was just a fun little pattern roundup. It really sort of just like hit me out of nowhere last week that I really wanted to do this pattern roundup. I have been really busy over the past week, so I have filmed this at night right before the sun goes down, because as we get into those fall days, our nights start to get longer and longer and I start to lose daylight earlier and earlier. So I hope the lighting in this video was okay. It's been looking okay in my viewfinder, so I'm really hopeful that it looks good as a finished video as well. I'm going to try my absolute best to get this video edited really quickly so that I can upload it very quickly, because I am just so excited about this pattern roundup, and I really wanted to share my love of K-pop Demon Hunters through my love of size-inclusive knitting patterns. So thank you very much for sticking it out for this video. I hope you found some patterns that you liked in this video, and if you know someone else who might enjoy this pattern roundup, please share it on to them. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave me a comment below. Tell me your favorite K-pop Demon Hunters character. Tell me which of these patterns you like the most. Let's have a great conversation in the comments. In my description box below, you will also find a link to my Ravelry wish list and a couple of affiliate links where you could help support my channel through any of those links if you so choose, but there's never any pressure to do so. Now this is all wrapped up, I'm gonna go watch K-pop Demon Hunters again. I hope you all take care and happy knitting!